Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make these super cute cottagecore inspired bag charms. So let's just get into the tutorial. Okay, so for this project I'm going to be using 3 different colours. I've got double knit acrylic yarn and I've got it in white, green and red, and I'm also going to be using a 2.5mm hook, some scissors and a stitch marker. And then I also recommend some sort of stuffing, so I'm going to be using this toy stuffing. You can also use yarn scraps if you don't have toy stuffing. So I'm going to be starting off with the teapot, so I'm going to just take my white yarn for the main part of it and my stitch marker. And I'm going to be starting off with a slip knot. So I'm just going to make a slip knot and a chain of 3. And then after your chain 3, I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain, like that, and that's just going to create a small ring. And then you want to pull that ring apart, and right in that center hole, that very, very tiny one in the middle, I'm going to make 6 single crochets. So going into that hole, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. Into the hole, again, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. And as I'm going around making those single crochets, I'm crocheting over this tail so that I can create a drawstring. So again, inserting the hook, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. And I'm just going to do that 3 more times so that I then get 6, 4, 5 and 6. And then I can pull on this tail to draw the hole in. Then take your stitch marker and place it in that 6th single crochet, like that. And then that is the end of round 1. So you should have 6 single crochets in your round. And then for your second round, we are going to be doubling the amount of stitches we have. So I'm going to be doing 2 single crochets into each stitch all the way around. So going into my first one with 2 single crochets, into the next stitch with 2 single crochets, and then into each stitch all the way around with 2 single crochets in one stitch. Then place your stitch marker into the 12th stitch to mark the end of the round, and that is the end of round 2. And then for round 3 I'm going to be doing a single crochet in the first stitch and then an increase into the second stitch, and then repeating that around. So 1 single crochet into the first stitch and then 2 single crochets into the second, also known as an increase. And then I'm just repeating that around, so 1 in the first stitch and then an increase into the second stitch. And at the end of your round you should have 18 single crochets. Then replace the stitch marker, and that is the end of round 3. So for round 4 I'm now going to be doing 2 single crochets and then an increase and repeating that around. So 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches and then an increase into the 3rd stitch. So 2 single crochets in that 1 stitch. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around, so 1 in the first stitch, 1 in the second and 2 in the 3rd. And then by the end of the round you should have 24 stitches. Then replace the stitch marker. And then for my next round I'm going to do 3 single crochets and then an increase into the 4th stitch. So I'll just be doing 1 single crochet into the first 3 stitches and then into the 4th stitch 2 single crochets, and I'm going to repeat that all the way around. So I'm going to do that now off camera, and then afterwards I'm going to just do 2 rounds of single crochet, so no increases. I'll come back after round 7. So just as a recap, I'm going to now complete my 5th round, which is 3 single crochets and an increase, and then after that I'm going to do 2 rounds of just plain single crochet. Okay, so once you have completed your 2 rounds of single crochet, we are now going to be kind of reversing what we've done. We're going to be decreasing instead of increasing, and you should have this kind of half bowl kind of shape. So we're now going to be doing 3 single crochets and then a decrease, so 1 single crochet into the first 3 stitches, and then we're going to be decreasing into the 4th and 5th, so we're kind of joining the 4th and 5th stitch together. So just start off with your 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then to make the decrease I'm going to be picking up the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. So just insert your hook, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and then insert your hook into the next front loop, yarn over and pull through, and you should have 3 loops on the hook, and then I'm going to just yarn over and pull through all 3 loops like that. Okay, so that is your decrease, and I'm going to literally just repeat that all the way around. So 3 single crochets, and then your decrease stitch, so going into the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, into the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So now I'm just going to repeat that all the way around, and in the end of the round you should have 24 stitches. For the next round I'm going to be doing 2 single crochets and then a decrease, so I'm going to do my first 2 single crochets, so 1 and 2, and then I'm going to decrease into the 3rd and 4th stitch, so picking up that first loop, picking up that second loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and I'm just repeating that all the way around. So for the next round I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm just going to do a plain round of single crochet, but this time I'm going into the back loop only. So I'm just going to pick up the back loop of my next stitch right here, so that's the one furthest away from you, and then just make your single crochet as normal, and then repeat that into each stitch, just a single crochet into the back loop of each stitch. Okay, so that is the round in the back loop all done, and then for the next round I'm going to do another decrease round. So this time I'm just going to do 1 single crochet and then a decrease stitch, so 1 single crochet into the first stitch and then a decrease stitch into that second and third, and I'm just going to repeat that all the way around, and by the end of the round you're going to have 12 stitches. Okay, so at this point you then just want to stuff the work, because after this point it can get quite difficult to stuff it. So you just want to stuff like the bulk of it, but leaving a little bit of space at the top, because we are still going to be doing 1 more round of crochet. So for the final round I'm just literally going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch, through both loops as well, so it's just a plain round, and this is going to be our final round. So before we draw in the top you want to make sure that you do that last little bit of stuffing. So just going to do my last round of single crochet, 1 in each stitch, okay, and then you just want to pull the yarn out and then cut kind of a long tail, not too long, just enough that you can weave this in. Just pull that tail through, and then here's where I'm going to stuff the rest. So once you have stuffed the rest of the teapot, we're now going to just weave this end in, and we're basically going to just be wrapping the tail around each stitch in a spiral. So you want to take the yarn tail and then just insert your hook into the next sort of stitch on the top, and then you just kind of want to yarn over and pull through and pull it all the way through like that, and then going into the next stitch, insert the hook and then wrap the yarn over the hook and then pull that yarn tail through. And I'm literally just doing it through each stitch, so that is 12 times. Okay, so after you've wound it around each stitch you can then just pull gently on the tail and it should draw the hole closed. Just make sure that all of your stuffing is nice and even. Now I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to just kind of insert it onto the side of the teapot, and I'm going to push it up to the top where that tail is, and then just pull the tail down through to the other side. Like that. And then you can just cut the yarn. And now I'm going to be showing you how to make the pot lid, which is just going to be a small ball on top. So just take the same colour of yarn, make a slip knot, and you just want to push your hook through the top middle section of the teapot, so right on that kind of drawstring hole. Just push your hook through, and then you want to pull the slip knot through that area like that, and then you just want to chain one to attach it. And we're going to be doing a puff stitch, and it is a little bit complicated, but we're only going to be doing one of them, and then we're just going to be done now with the top of the teapot. So it's going to essentially be kind of like yarning over and pulling through a bunch of times, and then we just cinch it all in together at the end. So I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook into that place where we just pulled the slip knot through, and then yarn over again and pull through. And then you want to kind of pull the work up so that you're creating a little bit of a longer stitch up here. And then we just repeat that again. Yarn over, insert the hook into that area, yarn over and pull through. So we've done that twice now. We're going to do it 4 times. So yarn over, insert your hook into that area, yarn over and pull through, and that's 3. Last one, yarn over, insert your hook into that area, yarn over and pull through. Okay, so as you can see, we've got quite a lot of loops on our stitch now, but we're going to be finishing by basically doing a yarn over and pulling through all of those loops like that. Okay, and then you simply just want to make a slip stitch, which can be quite difficult, but you just want to kind of push it into the top of the teapot, the hook. It doesn't need to be exact, we just want to fasten it to the top of it. So just push your hook through any section on the teapot, but kind of centrally so that we can still keep it neat, and then make your slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over, and then pull your first loop through the second, like that. Okay, and then you can just chain one and fasten off. Because we've done quite a lot of pulling, you might notice that the teapot looks a little bit out of shape. You just kind of want to push it around and remold it to how it was looking before. And then any end we can just weave in with our hook, and then I'm going to show you how to make the spout and the handle. Okay, so now for the spout, you want to take your main colour and make a slip knot. And you want to attach it on one of the sides of the teapot. So I'm just going to pick this one. And you kind of want to find that central point right here, and that's basically where we're going to be placing the spout. So you just want to push your hook through kind of 2 of those holes to pick up a stitch. It doesn't really need to be super accurate because we're just going to be making a circle. So I'm just going to pick up a stitch and pull my slip knot through there, and then chain one to attach it. And then first of all, we're going to be doing 8 single crochets. So into the same spot, I'm just going to make my single crochet. And then I'm going to find kind of the next spot across and make a single crochet. And then I'm going to kind of tilt the work to the side so that I can start working up the side of the circle, if that makes sense. So just creating that curve. Just kind of pushing my hook through this sort of space here, making a single crochet, and then going into the next space, single crochet. So currently I've got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, so I just got another 4 to go. Again, I'm working in a circle, so I'm just going to go into the next sort of available spot, make another single crochet, and then as you can see, we've kind of got half of a circle here, so I'm just going to continue going round until we've got 8 in total. And then last one, 8, and then you can just place your stitch marker in that 8th single crochet. So now we've got a circle that is basically being attached on top of the actual project that we made before. So that ball, to create the teapot, we've actually made like an extra like kind of section of crocheting on top of that. So that is now our round 1 of the spout, and for round 2 I'm going to be making a decrease. So I'm just going to do a single crochet into the first stitch. So I'm just going to skip that chain 1, and I'm going to go straight into that single crochet, and I'm going to just make a single crochet, and then into the next sort of 2 spaces I'm going to do a decrease. So I'm just going to pick up the front loop And this is where it can be a bit fiddly, so I hope that it's making sense. Pick up the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, pick up the front loop of the following stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then make that decrease, so yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And we're only going to be doing 1 decrease for this round, so the rest of these stitches we're just going to do single crochets. So by the end of the round you should have 7 single crochets. And then for the next round I'm going to do another decrease round, so I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then I'm going to decrease into the next stitch, so grabbing the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then grabbing the front loop of the next stitch. Yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And then I'm going to just single crochet for the rest of those stitches. So in total now you should have 6 in your round, and then for the final round I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. I'll just place the stitch marker back. So now we've got 6 single crochets, I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. Take the stitch marker out now. Again, you might need to kind of remold the shape of it, because just naturally by you kind of holding the project you're going to kind of squish it, so that's fine. And now I'm just going to simply slip stitch into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, pull the first loop through the second, then I'm just going to pull the yarn out like that, and I'm just going to weave it kind of onto the inside of the work, and this is just going to keep it nice and neat. And same thing for this tail here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the handle, so I'm going to be doing that on the opposite side to the spout, so roughly about here, and I've already made my slip knot. So for the handle we're basically going to be attaching the yarn at the kind of top area of the teapot, so I'm just spacing it equally out to where the middle lid is, and then the edge kind of here. So I'm just going to insert my hook into kind of a space on the teapot right here, just spacing it evenly, and then I'm going to pull my slip knot through like that. And then for the handle I'm going to be chaining 8, so just make a chain of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And then you just want to kind of drag the chain down a few spaces on the teapot to create that gap. So I'm just going to go maybe about 3 rows below where I've done. So 1, 2, 3. So count just 3 rows below where you attach the yarn. So 1, 2, 3. And then just kind of push your hook through a space on that part of the teapot. And I'm going to just make a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through, and then pull your first loop through the second, like that. Okay, and then naturally your work will kind of flip itself onto the back of the chain, and you then just want to do a single crochet into each chain. So you can either do this in the back bump, or you can just do it in the top chain if you don't want to overcomplicate it. I'm just going to do it in the top chain because otherwise it gets a bit complicated. So I'm just basically going to skip that slip stitch kind of chain that I just made there, and then I'm just going to go into that next one across and just do a single crochet in the top of the chain. Just going into the next chain across, making a single crochet, and I'm just going to repeat that all the way across. And then once you get to the end of the chain, you then want to slip stitch back into that little section where you attached the yarn. So I'm just going to push my hook kind of through behind where I attached it, and then just make another slip stitch. Like that. And then just chain 1 and cut the yarn. Okay, and then this is what you should have for your handle, and then you just want to weave your ends in, and that is the main part of the teapot all complete. And then I'm literally just going to embroider a small strawberry on the kind of front of the teapot. I don't really have much of the instructions for this because I just kind of freehanded it, but I essentially just marked out a kind of strawberry shape with an upside down triangle with some red yarn, and then I just filled it in back and forth with a sewing needle. And then for the leaves I literally just kind of made a few little lines and then the stem on top, and that's pretty much it. And I think it's also quite handy to have like a reference photo up when you are wanting to embroider anything, because then it just gives you a bit more visual. So I'm just going to sew on the strawberry now, and then I'm going to move on to the next project. Okay, so I'm now going to be working on the mushroom. I'm going to be doing the top of the mushroom first, so you're going to need your red colour, and I'm going to start off by making a slip knot. And I'm going to make 3 chains. And I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain like this. So pretty much the same as we've been doing. And I'm going to do 6 single crochets into the ring. Pull on that tail, and then I'm going to place my stitch marker in that 6th stitch. So a lot of these projects kind of start off the same, and they have kind of a similar pattern. So for the second round I'm going to just do 2 single crochets into each stitch, which is going to bring the stitches up to 12. Okay, and then for round 3 I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the 1st stitch and then an increase into the 2nd, and I'm going to repeat that around, giving me 18 stitches. And then for the following round, which is round 4, I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase, so 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches, and into the 3rd stitch I'm going to do an increase stitch. So I'm just going to do those stitches off camera because I've explained them quite a lot now and I don't want it to kind of get boring. So I'm just going to do round 3 and 4 off camera. By the end of round 4 you should have 24 stitches. Okay, so after your 4th round we are now going to be doing round 5, and this is the final round for the top of the mushroom. So we're literally just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch, and we're only going to be doing it in the front loop. So I'm just picking up the front loop here and making my single crochet, same in the next stitch, picking up the front loop and making a single crochet, and I'm just going to do that all the way around, so that is 24 single crochets in the front loop. Okay, so once you have done your 24 single crochets in the front loop only, we are then just going to slip stitch into the next stitch and then chain 1 and fasten off. Just cut tail like that, and then you can just set this aside for now, and if you want to you can add some spots just using some white yarn and a sewing needle, or you could even crochet your own by just doing some small circles, whatever feels good for you. I'm just going to set this aside for now and focus on the base. You want to take your white colour and again make a slip knot and chain 3. And then slip stitch into the 3rd chain to make that ring. So very similar to what we did for the mushroom top, I'm basically going to be repeating round 1 to 4 of the mushroom top. So just as a recap, that's 6 single crochets in the first round. In the second round I'm going to be doing an increase into each stitch, so that's 2 single crochets into each stitch, giving me 12 stitches. And then for the third round, 1 single crochet and an increase and repeat, giving me 18 stitches. And then round 4 is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase, repeat, and that is going to give me 24 stitches. So just like we did for the mushroom top, minus the round in the front loop, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing. So I'm just going to do that now off camera so that I'm not repeating myself, and then I will come back for round 5 onwards. Okay, so I'm now just going to start round 5, and it's nice and simple. I'm just going to do 1 round of plain single crochet, so just 1 in each stitch. Okay, so for round 6 I'm going to do a decrease round, and I'm going to be doing 2 single crochets and then a decrease, and then repeating that sequence, and this is going to bring your stitches down to 18. So I'm just going to do 2 single crochets and then a decrease stitch, and then the same thing again, 2 single crochets and a decrease stitch. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way around. Then for the next round I'm going to be doing 1 single crochet and then a decrease. So I'm going to be now decreasing my stitches by 6, so by the end of this round I have 12 stitches. So I'm just going to do a single crochet in the first stitch and then a decrease into the next. And then I'm just repeating that all the way around. Okay, so I've now got 12 stitches in my round, and then for round 8 to 11 I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch, and then for round 12 I'm going to do a single crochet in the first stitch and then an increase into the following stitch, repeating that around, which is going to bring my stitches up to 18. For round 13 I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase, and I'm going to repeat that, which is going to bring my stitches up to 24, and then I will meet you back for the next step. Okay, so at this point you just want to stuff the work, and you want to continue stuffing once we are going to be attaching the top and the bottom together. And we're going to do 1 final round, which is just going to be single crochet, so just 1 in each stitch. Okay, so once you have done that final round, you then just want to slip stitch into the next stitch and then chain 1 and fasten off. And then you just want to stuff the rest of the base of the mushroom. So at this stage is where I'm going to be sewing some dots onto the top of the mushroom. So I'm just going to do that off camera, and then I'm going to show you how we actually attach them both together. Okay, so I've just done a few spots around the mushroom, like that, and then I'm just going to place the lid kind of on top of the base, and I'm going to be using my red yarn to attach everything. So you just want to make a slip knot and then place the lid on top. It doesn't matter where you place it, like this, and then I'm just going to basically insert my hook into the inside loops. So that is going to be the back loop on the white part and the front loop on the red part, like that, and then just pull your slip knot through like that, and then chain 1 to attach it. And we're going to be doing 1 single crochet into these inside loops, so into the same 2 inside loops, that white one and the red one, and I'm also going to place the tail over the top so I can weave that in as I go, and I'm just going to do a single crochet. So now I'm going to go into the next back loop of the white stitch and the next front loop of the red stitch, and I'm going to make a single crochet into the next back loop of the white and the next front loop of the red, make a single crochet, and I'm literally just going to continue that all the way around. And once you get to about halfway, you then want to start stuffing the kind of top part of the mushroom, and then once you get around to the kind of the beginning, you then want to continue to stuff as you go, and make sure that it is to your liking, and then I will meet you back at the other side. So once you've done your last single crochet, you then just want to make a slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made right there to join everything together, and then you just want to chain 1 and fasten off. So now I'm going to show you how to make the frog. Okay, so I'm now going to be showing you how to make the frog, and you want to have your white yarn and your green yarn, and I'm going to be starting off with the green yarn, but just make sure that you've got your white yarn ready. I'm just going to make a slip knot so that when we do change colours later it's ready. And then take your green yarn and also make a slip knot, and I'm basically going to do pretty much what we've been doing this entire time. I'm going to start off with a chain of 3 and slip stitch into that third chain, like that, slip stitch, and then I'm going to make 6 single crochets into the ring. Okay, then place the stitch marker. And then for round 2 I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch, bringing my stitches up to 12. Then for round 3 I'm going to do 1 single crochet into the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the second stitch, repeating that around, which is going to bring me up to 18 stitches. Okay, and then for the next round, this is where I'm going to be adding the white colour. So I'm just going to start my first single crochet off in green. So just insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, and then I'm going to switch colours now to white. So your first stitch is going to be a single crochet in green, and then the next 7 stitches are going to be in white, and on that 7th stitch we switch back to green. So I'm just going to pull through those last 2 loops with my white colour, dropping the green yarn to the back. I'm going to be weaving it in because I want to follow that yarn through to the other side, if that makes sense, so we can pick it up later. So now I'm just going to do 7 single crochets in white. On the 7th I'm going to switch back to green. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this is the 7th, so I'm going to switch colours here, insert my hook with white, yarn over with white and pull through, drop the white and then pick up green, and then yarn over and pull through with green, and then we've just switched back. And now I'm just going to finish the rest of this round with single crochets in green. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat this row again, or this round again, sorry. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in green, and I'm going to switch colours. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through, drop the green and pick up the white, and then yarn over and pull through with the white, and then do my 7 single crochets in white, and on the 7th switch back to green. So I'm just going to switch back to green on this one. So inserting my hook, yarn over with white, drop the white and pick up the green, and then yarn over and pull through with green to switch back, and then just complete the rest of the round with your green colour. Just doing single crochets, 1 in each. So it's just a plain round. Okay, so for round 6 I am now going to be doing a skip on the first and last white stitch. So what that means is I'm not going to be doing the white stitch, I'm going to be replacing it with green. So it looks like a skip, but it's actually just another round of single crochet, if that makes sense. So I'm going to just do basically the first 2 stitches in green. On that 2nd stitch I'm going to switch to white. So rather than doing just 1 single crochet in green, I'm going to be doing 2. So I'm going to start my first stitch in green, and then my 2nd stitch, and this is where I'm going to switch back to white. So this is going to be basically the skip that I was talking about. We're going to be reducing the amount of white stitches, but it's not a decrease, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to switch back to white, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets in white, and on the 5th I'm going to switch back to green. So I'm now about to start the 5th one, so I'm going to insert my hook into the white, yarn over and pull through, drop the white yarn and pick up the green, and then finish the stitch with green. And then I can just do now my green stitch in that white yarn into the next, like that. Okay, so we've just reduced the amount of white stitches we have and replaced them with green. So now I'm just going to finish the rest of the round with my green colour. Okay, so that is probably the most complicated part of the entire pattern for this frog. So now we don't need the white yarn anymore, and I just continue to weave it back to the front of the round because then it's all tucked in. So you can just set aside the white now, and we're just going to be working with the green only. So for the next 2 rounds, I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. That is round 7 and round 8. Okay, so I've just finished my 8th round, and now for round 9 and 10 I'm going to be doing the same decrease round. So this is just going to be a sequence of 1 single crochet and then a decrease, and that is going to be for 2 rounds. So 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then make your decrease stitch into the second and third, and then just repeat that all the way around for 2 rounds. Okay, so after you have completed your 10th round, you're going to end up with 8 stitches, and then at this point you just want to stuff the frog. Then after you've stuffed the body, then just want to cut the yarn. Same as before, you just kind of want to cut a longish piece, enough that you can wind it around and pull it through. And then just wind the yarn around each of the stitches to create a drawstring. And just draw the yarn in, just weave the end into the back of the work. Okay, so you should have something like this, and now we are going to be doing the eyes. So you want to make sure that the frog is facing kind of the front, so you've got this section here facing the front, this white section, so that everything is nice and central. And then you want to take your main colour, the green, and then you just want to kind of map exactly where you want each of these eyes to go, and we're going to be making like 2 bumps on top of the head. So again, make sure that you are lining everything up as if this is going to be the front, and then just insert your hook at any point on the kind of side / front of the head, and then pull your slip knot through like that. And we're going to be making a puff stitch. So for the puff stitch, we're basically going to just be yarning over, just like we did for the teapot, yarning over and pulling through a few times to create that puff. So I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook into the same space that I've just pulled my slip knot through, yarn over and pull through, and that counts as 1, and I'm going to do it 4 times. So yarn over, insert my hook into the space, yarn over and pull through, that's 2, and I'm going to do it 2 more times, like that. So you should have a bunch of loops on your hook, and then you just want to yarn over and pull through all of those loops, and then insert your hook into the next sort of space next to it and make a slip stitch like that. Okay, and then you can just pull out the yarn like so to fasten off, and then tuck these ends kind of into the back, and then you've got a nice little bump. And I'm just going to repeat the exact same thing on the opposite side. Okay, so I'm now going to just tuck these So now I'm just going to tuck these ends into the back of the work, and then pretty much all you need to do for the face details is just grab some dark yarn or some dark embroidery thread like this, and you can just stitch a little face on however you want. And then once you've done that, I'm going to come back and show you how to do the arms and legs. Okay, so I'm now going to show you how to do the arms and legs, and these are all the exact same, it's just where you place them. So I'm going to be placing each arm just kind of directly below the kind of bump that we made for the eye, but not too far down because I'm going to be making them quite long. So each leg is going to sit kind of in the centre at the bottom of the frog right here, and then each arm is going to sit quite high up just below the eye either side. So just to kind of give you a reference, this is where I placed mine for this one that I made. So I'm just going to push my hook through here. Again, make sure that it's all nice and lined up, and then I'm going to pull my slip knot through that space on the body, and then I'm going to chain 12. Okay, so once you have your chain of 12, we're now just going to be working into the back bumps of the chain, so you just kind of want to flip the chain to the back and work in those back bumps. So in the second back bump from the hook, so that is the back bump behind the second chain from the hook, I'm going to make a slip stitch. So slip stitch right there into that second back bump, like that, and then I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to slip stitch into that same back bump, and I'm going to chain 2 one more time and slip stitch into that same back bump, and that's just going to create like a little mini hand. And then nice and simple, the rest of the way of this chain I'm just going to slip stitch into each back bump all the way across. So once you've done that last slip stitch, you then want to find the space kind of just above the section where we inserted the hook. It doesn't need to be exact, but just find a kind of space above where we attached the yarn, and then just yarn over and pull through and do a slip stitch to finish the arm. And then you just want to chain 1 and fasten off. And then that is the arm all complete, and then you can just weave that end in, and then you pretty much just want to do the same on the other side, and then 2 on the bottom. And then once you have completed the face details, the frog is all done, and then all you have to simply do is just make either a little stitch, or you could even hot glue it if you don't really want to sew it, but you want to place the frog on top of the mushroom. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make the jam jar. So I'm going to start off with the base of the jam jar, which I'm going to be using red for. And just like with everything else we've been doing, I'm going to be starting off my first round with 6 single crochets into the ring. My second round I'm going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch, so I'm going to bring my stitches up to 12. And then the third round I'm going to do a single crochet in the first stitch and an increase into the second stitch, and I'm going to repeat that, bringing my stitches up to 18. So I'm just going to start that now. Okay, so once you've done your last round of increasing, I'm now just going to basically do a slip stitch round. So I'm just going to be making 1 slip stitch into each stitch. Now the slip stitch is quite tight. I recommend that for this round you don't do the slip stitch too tight, but don't do it too loose either. You just want to make sure that the stitches are nice and easy to get into for the next round. So I'm doing a looser tension, but not too loose, if that makes sense. I'm just going to do a slip stitch into each stitch all the way around. So that's 18 slip stitches. Okay, once you've done your slip stitches, just place your stitch marker back into that last slip stitch we just made. And from round 5 to round 10, I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch around, and then once I've completed that, I am going to fasten off. So it's nice and simple, this base part. It is just a little bit of increasing and then a round of slip stitch, and then round 5 to 10 is just single crochets. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then after my last stitch of round 10 I'm then just going to fasten off, and then I will show you how I done the lid. So for the lid you just want to repeat round 1 to round 5. So you're going to want to do 6 single crochets into a ring, 2 single crochets into each stitch, bringing the stitches up to 12, and then for round 3 1 single crochet, increase, repeat to bring your stitches up to 18, and then you want to do 1 round of slip stitch, and then your 5th round is going to be your final round, and that is just 1 round of single crochet, and then you just fasten off. So it's nice and simple. And now we are going to basically be attaching these together on top, and you want to take your white yarn for that, make a slip knot, and then just line them up. It doesn't need to be perfect. I do recommend stuffing the base of this now just a little bit, and then as we go around fastening we can stuff it a little bit more. Okay, so now place the lid on top. You can start attaching your yarn at any point, it doesn't not matter. So we're going to be grabbing both loops on the red stitches, and we're going to just be grabbing the front loop, or the one closest to you, of the white stitches. So I'm just going to pull my yarn through all of those stitches there lined up. So the 2 red stitches and then the front loop of the white stitch. Pull that through and chain 1 to attach it. Like that. It can be a bit fiddly, but once you get everything going it's much easier. And I'm going to be doing, in the same stitch, I'm going to be doing 2 single crochets. So going into those red stitches, and then I'm going into the front loop of the white stitch, and I'm going to do 2 single crochets. Like that. And then for the rest of the attachment, I'm basically going to just do 3 single crochets into those stitches. So where there's a red one, I'm pushing my hook through both of those loops. I'm just going to weave this end in as I go. And then into the next white stitch, I'm just going through the front loop. And then through these stitches, I'm going to do 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And then same into the next one, picking up that red stitch, both of the loops, and just the front loop of the white one, 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm literally just repeating that now all the way around. Once you kind of get about halfway, you then just want to start stuffing the rest of the jam jar. Okay, so once you have done your last 3 single crochets, you then just want to find that first single crochet that you made, so not the chain 1, but that first one that you made. And then just slip stitch into that first single crochet. Like that. And then you just want to chain 1 and fasten off. And then that is the lid and the base all connected, and then you've got this really nice kind of cloth type design. And now I'm going to show you how to make the label. It's super easy. So you just want to take your white yarn and make a slip knot. And then you want to make a chain of 8. That, and then just flip your chain over so that you're now working in the back bumps, and you just want to make 1 single crochet into the second back bump, and then 1 single crochet into each back bump across, and this is going to give you 7 stitches in the row. And then for our second row, we're just going to be turning the work, so I'm not going to be chaining 1, and I'm just going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch across. That's 7 single crochets. And to make things a bit easier, I like to loop the end over my hook so that I can weave it in. So I'm just going into that first stitch right there, making my single crochet, and then 1 in each stitch all the way across. And then for my last row, I'm going to turn the work once again, and I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So just in total, we're going to just have 3 rows of single crochet. Okay, nice and simple. And then you just want to cut a fairly long tail so that you can sew this label on for later. If you don't want to sew the label on, then you are welcome to kind of hot glue it. I recommend that at this stage you sew on your strawberry design. So same thing that we did with the teapot, where we sewed a small strawberry. You want to do the exact same thing to here so that you can kind of have your own strawberry label. And yeah, I'm going to now finish the rest of this jam jar, and then I'm going to show you how we attach each of our pieces to a metal ring. And that is everything for this tutorial. I hope you guys all loved making your bag charms, and if you have any ideas of what you'd like me to make next, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. Bye guys.